really not well set up unless the heroic scenes, I think.
As do I.
I have laundry. I have laundry in the washer or in the dryer. These are the things I have.
Alrighty. I think we are good to go. So we'll be starting here just in a second. Oops. The right button.
Well, I see Ja Rule, so we're good to go.
Cool. All right. Hello, everyone. I think we are good to go, everyone. It's Saturday night. It is time for us to talk about anime. How you guys been?
Good so far. Getting ready for a trip later next week, so I'm going to be very happy about that.
Yep.
Cool. Yes, I woke up this morning, so I'm very happy about that.
There.
So that's always a plus.
Yes,
Mhm.
always a
Exactly.
plus side.
Well, we are here today to talk about a remarkable anime film, the Royal Space Force: The Wings of Honiamise. And this film came out, according to one of the folks at Gainax. Basically they had been working. Gainax had been working organizing conventions and just sort of. They started General Products, which is sort of their anime store. And so they had a bunch of contacts in the industry, and apparently there was some money left over from a project that hadn't really gone forward. And one of the financiers behind this thing said, "Hey, you know, we finance anime. Would you want to make an anime at some point?" And you're like, "Yeah." And so they
What?
said,
Of course not. No, never.
We're into making toys and children's shoes.
Pretty much. And that's kind of the weird thing is that they had, they had been really much fans, and then they gotten into more the product side of things, and then they got into the anime side of things. And by the way, General Products, that is a play on a Larry Niven thing, science fiction thing. So it was an anime store, it was a sci-fi store. But anyway, and so they got into making anime. And so Royal Space Force was, whoops, what just happened? There we go. Royal Space Force was very much their statement to the anime industry in a lot of ways. They thought this was their one chance to make an anime. Right? They figured they would never get back into this again. This was kind of their one thing, because they weren't anime producers, right? They were just this, a bunch of geeks, basically. So they kind of, shot their load with this.
Talent.
Yeah. And so they got together, Hideaki Anno and all sorts of folks to work on this project and really kind of make Hideaki Anno and all sorts of folks to something that was a big statement for them. And I think it's one of the reasons why it is, in many ways, a very artsy film. It feels more like an art house film than a lot of other things you made. It's not like, the character designs aren't very anime in the classic sense. They look like anime characters, but there's kind of a three-dimensionality to them. And it's just a very unusual film. So it came out as a sort of shot across the bow to say, hey, folks, do this. Which, again, is one of the reasons I think it starts very quiet with just these shots of basically this guy trudging through the snow going to look at technology, which I think is in and of itself kind of a statement, because this is it's always interesting seeing how folks start something, because this is what geeks love, right? Is going and looking at ships and fighter jets and all this kind of stuff, and this guy's like, this is what I want to do, and you get this very grounded, realistic animation of these ships, and what they do so brilliantly is you look at them like, oh, okay, it's like an aircraft, but that's not an aircraft carrier. That looks kind of like that's not anything I recognize, and everything's just a little bit off. And they give you all of these hints that where Earth, this is not.
Right. Well, the interesting thing about that opening bit is the actual plane that is taking off
Mm-hmm.
looks like a World War II experimental Japanese fighter called a Shinden.
Okay.
I mean,
Cool.
it's almost exactly the same design,
Ah.
except for the weird, like, double rotor propellers on the back.
Yeah.
But it's almost exactly a drop dead match.
Yeah.
Which I was just kind of like, okay, are you trying to like link people in so that you're not like totally out in the sea? Like, what's going on here? And you could be like, okay, I sort of recognize that.
Yep.
So now we're aircraft. Gotcha. Okay, I see where we're going. Military thing. Like, okay, maybe.
Exactly. Including this very Macross style, opening of the ship and so forth. And then you go into concept art.
Which was really
cool, actually.
Yeah, it
totally.
was like looking back at World War I photos.
Yeah.
Where it's just all these kind of things where it's like, wow, the sort of way that they made it grainy in the actual rendition of the picture gave it that sense of like some age on it and like a pre-color kind of world. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really cool.
Yeah, no, totally. And it feels like one of those things where, what do you do in your opening credit sequence for a movie like this? I think it's a really tough thing to figure out. I think it's a wise thing of saying, let's not reveal our cards too much, but give the audience something to look at that's visually distinctive, but makes them wonder still what exactly is going on here. And so we get a sort of Apocalypse Now opening with our main character,
which you're talking about. You're talking about Gynax. And I'm not spoiling anything by saying jumping through to the very end credit. But it's got Gynax on it. And as it scrolls through, did you notice the part where it said Daikon Film?
Yes. Oh yeah.
I was like, oh my god, right there. I'm like, oh.
Well, because what they did, so for the Daikon animations, they basically brought together a whole bunch of folks to animate that stuff. And then when they came to make Honey Mise, they're like, let's call all those folks up again and bring them together. So it's
like,
basically the
that's
same
so
group.
amazing. Like, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
When I saw that credit, I was just like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when this is my first time seeing the movie, and I'm just gonna have to say that, and we'll get to the scene later on, but with the exception of the one scene, it was really amazing to me, and I'm gonna have to rejigger my top 10 anime. I'm not exactly sure.
Oh,
where
wow.
to put it, but
Yep.
it's up there now. And the first, when you're talking about the first scene, him trudging out in the snow, and then having the voice exposition of talking about himself. And one of the things I liked about that exposition was that even though it took about 2 minutes as he's trudging out and we're seeing the different planes and we're seeing the montage and his voice in the background, once the film started to get going, you realize I don't need to know anything more about this character because here he is. And you get the great explanation of him, which is, I really love these jets. I wanted to fly one of these jets, but life kind of went this way, and not the sharpest tool in the shed. And now I'm back dry, and after having aimed for the start, now I'm back down in the middle. And he talks about class and back in the middle of class, and then it starts talking about Space Force, and for those out in chat land who, just to let you know, Space Force actually had a cool connotation to it prior and now. It doesn't have that comedic connotation.
Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting to see that. And now here's where I'm at. And they just show this burgeoning space program. And it's just kind of like, and he's looking at it as well as his compatriots are like going, just kind of like,
oh, yeah.
We're here so we don't have to be. And honestly, they're there so they don't have to be there when the war starts.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and this is the thing that's weird that I don't know, and maybe you guys do know and have found out. It's like it's flipped the idea that usually, and like the U.S. space program, when they were trying to get up to the point of getting Alan Shepard on top of a rocket to send him into orbit, you had people who were in the Air Force that were desperately trying to get qualified to be the first on that rocket. So it was, the Air Force is meh. You know, we fly, we sortie things. It's Air Force. Here's this exciting new thing. And in this film, it's the complete flip. Where it's, why is it the Air Force is like, holy cow, that's awesome. Rockets? Space? Yeah, who cares?
Yeah.
I also wonder if there aren't parallels to Japan in World War II, where, you know, if you were in the military, kind of front lines doing stuff, that was one thing. But if you were in some weird experimental project, no one was paying attention, so you were safe. So there were a lot of people who were in these, you know, oddball situations, or the oddball units doing things that were kind of off the thing. But you're not on the front lines. You're not exciting. It's not the big new thing. But I think you're absolutely right that, you know, this is deliberately setting up a flip to the real life space race. Is saying this is some bizarre project that no one believes is ever going to go anywhere, and is just, you know.
Well, which makes me wonder why. Well, not why. If they use the Shinden as an example, because that was a prototype, like far-reaching kind of futuristic aircraft. Even though it wasn't jet-powered, it still had high performance. It was still fly-by-wire, so you're not you know, you're relying on your stick and rudder technique. You're not relying on the computer to do it. And it was hard by its design to control. So those people in that program, you know what I mean, they were locked down to try and get that prototype going. And yes, they were kind of isolated from everything else going on. They weren't, you know, cranking out Zeros or Kates or any of the other aircraft. So, you know what I mean? It's like, there's so much I wonder about what goes on in the background that's not said.
And,
you know what I mean?
And this is being made for otaku who would know all that stuff, right? Like, that's their audience.
Right, yeah. Yep. Right. So as I'm watching this, I'm kind of like thinking to myself, going, okay. So I didn't know the type of plane, but it looked like a real plane to me. By the way, John, it was one of those things where I looked at it and I was just like, actually, what it reminded me of was the British, one of the first British monowings, which had the propeller in the back, and that was definitely a test plane. So that looked real to me. But so I was kind of wondering if that was a thing or not. So now I know. Thank you. But the thing about what you guys are bringing up about how like intense the pilots are, it's because I think in the movie what it is that there's no idea. Nobody cares about space. What is up? Because they talk about space. What is up there? Why do we want to go there? Why? What's the whole point? And when the girl explains to him why it's so exciting to her, he buys into that excitement and he figures out, oh wait, you know, there is a purpose to go there. Whereas here on the Earth, or the whatever proto Earth, whatever you want to call it, you know, they're putting such
Earth 2.
Earth 2. Yeah, right, Earth 2. Enter the DC universe. Anyway, but they're making such an effort on these experimental planes because that's the real thing. There is a burgeoning war coming on. This is something that's happening. The world is at flux because when you think about the space race, the real space race between Russia or Soviet Union and the United States in the 50s and 60s, that was a real thing. That was like that was the other thing, is that there was, like, you know, a lot of country behind it. It was a lot of national prestige and desire to be first, whatever. But there was a lot of the world wasn't as small then. There was you know, conflicts going everywhere. So the practicality of a space program in that world wasn't good because it wasn't, you know, nobody really thought about it, simply because everyone was just like, well, once we get up there, literally I think somebody asked this in the anime, well, once we get up there, what do we do with it? You know, why are we doing this? Why, you know, why? That question.
I get a big sense that they don't have an atomic program.
Right. God.
You know what I mean? Even though you've got jets and prop planes and other things, it's like you have, and I think I'm kind of glad in a way from a humanistic side of it that you don't have someone say, the space race is awesome because then we can build orbital platforms to drop weapons down from orbit. And it's like nobody brooks that question.
Right. True.
It's about, well, what's the utility of going to space? It's like, that's wow. What a purist humanist thought. What's the advantage versus the war advantage? It's
and again, I think this is why you get an anime from otaku tackling those things, because these are otaku who think we should go to space. Period. We should become an interplanetary species, right? Like we all love Elon Musk, right? This is the audience of this.
Yeah.
And again, I think you're absolutely right. Is that they're approaching it from that perspective of saying, let's not make a film where it's about military versus pacifists. Let's just pose this question, pose the situation, and say, okay, why, as you say.
Mankind's innate and inherent urge to push on to the absolute nth degree to things that excite our curiosity.
And we'll talk about excitement later. The thing about this movie, though, is that, and one of the things I love about the movie is that you start with, again, this very sort of these jets and these aircraft, and then this very Japanese cemetery in layout and style, but then these ridiculous
big
uniforms,
cemetery.
right? Yeah. But then these ridiculous uniforms that look like nothing you've ever seen anywhere else, and you're like, okay, that's weird. And then they go back to training, and you see all their equipment, and you see him eating his food, and then you see him go out for R&R, and every detail of this society has been thought through, and nothing is exactly equivalent to any one real-world culture, down to the coinage. The fact that they use like metal rods as coinage. It's just all these little things that are just brilliant. And it does what I think a lot of good science fiction does, is it takes you out of your real world context. You can look at it from a fresh eye.
That's what I was going to say when when they first came on and they're doing the funeral scene and the woman's with the rocks and she's going, it reminded me of this Buddhist temple I used to go to where the guy would sit there and he would say Omahang, 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 Omahang over and over again, blessings to God. And he'd sit there and go Omahang, 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 Omahang. And it just reminded me of that, and I was like, holy crap! And then you see the uniforms, the costumes, their uniforms, and I'm like, that looks like Incas.
Yeah.
It's definitely a very like a South American look. Yeah.
And then the way that the gravestones are, and you get some sense of never explained importance as to the circular rock on top of the stone that is not actually fixed to the stone because the dude just knocks it over. It's just like, oh no, can't do that.
Well, I'm thinking now. It's somebody whoever's out there in chat land or you guys correct me. I think it's supposed to be somewhat representational of Jizu, the little Jizu statues, where he's got the little Buddhist monk and he's got the little bald head, and he's got his robes, and oftentimes you see they put like a red scarf on him and other things. But I think that's supposed to be what the little rock on the top is. It's supposed to represent Jizu. So a little Buddhist monk figure.
Makes sense.
Cool.
And there's just all sorts of little things like that, little details like that all throughout the movie of just interesting little oddities. And then you have the inside of the girl's house, which is very kind of 60s Norwegian. I don't know. It's just very distinctive.
IKEA, 1960.
It's going to be the Beatles song "Norwegian Wood" playing in the background.
Just all these lovely, swooping things out of wood and such. Yeah. But again, not Japanese, but not like European, not anything. And it just really feels like they tried to make this very specific to its world. So you have the girl, and actually I want to backtrack here a little bit, because one of the things they do establish early on, before he even gets there, when they're out on the town, is that these are basically Air Force jockeys, and so they have a reputation, right? They have girlfriends. Right. They have girls who are not their girlfriends. They're going out. They're doing this, and our protagonist is not really into that as much, but he's one of the guys. And then he stumbles on this this missionary, basically, who's out proselytizing on the street. And it should be pointed out, there's something that we don't see as much over here in America. This is not uncommon in Japan and Asia and other countries, who are just standing on the street, proselytizing, just doing their thing. Right. And obviously Japan has a long tradition of, I use the word cults in the more dictionary sense of just, small religious practices that have 10 members or 20 members, or 100 or 1,000. And so this is a thing you would see, and people do just kind of walk by and ignore it. But
like Key the Metal Idol.
Exactly.
With their cult thing going on,
Yeah. Then he gets intrigued, and he goes out to meet her. And what I find so interesting about this is how much it's unlike so many other anime scenes like this, where nothing really happens. He's just spending time with this person. He doesn't really have an agenda. She has an agenda, but we all know where it's going. She's just kind of trying to bring him to his side. But she's not really pursuing this much. And it's just this kind of lovely scene of a bunch of characters all interacting and just kind of sussing each other out. Which, again, for a movie is kind of unusual to not have that big drive towards the next plot point.
Yeah, to not have the clarified character track that then you can just move the action along. But I think it was very interesting for him as a character that he's stuck in the middle. He's stuck in this, sort of malaise that is the space program. He is very much portrayed as a guy, but there is a sort of naivete about him, where he's walking through the red light district and he waves. You know what I mean? That he's in it, he's around it, he's surrounded by it, he'll drink, he'll play cards, but he's got this almost fresh-faced youth kind of thing going on where and that's where sitting down with Mana and with Rikini is it's such an interesting juxtaposition of his manhood and his humanity. He wants to know them on a human level.
Yeah.
But he's attracted Rikini, and he's not entirely sure how to approach that.
Yeah.
And he is internally conflicted and awkward, and they've animated that well, even in just the quiet moments where he doesn't know what to say next. So it gives you that palpable sense of he doesn't know how to land this.
Yeah.
Does he want to know what she's talking about? Or does he want to be sort of more of the guyish in the red light district, be like, hey, how you doing, girl? Let's go. You know what I mean? He's trapped in the in-between of that.
So for me, when he was, going back towards the beginning, when he's sitting in whatever that bar area, just kind of wool gathering and just kind of thinking about things, and you realize that it's the funeral of one of his compatriots, and he's not as upset as you would think he should be. And he's kind of caught in this fatalism of what this program is. And he's sort of caught up, and the one thing he had in his life was that he wanted to fly jets. Yeah. But he can't have that. So he's in this thing, and he's just kind of he's literally just, to me, he's just coasting through life at this point. So like you're saying, okay, the guys are playing cards, I'm going to play cards. The guys are drinking, I'm going to drink. All right, this is going to happen, that's happening, so I'm going to do that. And so then as he's walking through, as he's abandoned basically by his friend, while he goes off to get some cookie, he's wandering through waving to people because he doesn't, like you say, he doesn't know how to land it. He doesn't know what he's going to do next. He's aimless. He's got nothing. He's literally got nothing. He's just I'm
very middle.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Very middle.
It's so
then he comes across Mana, and Mana, the gods, Mana, food, whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe that's, he comes across her, and she says something very provocative. Which is, her religious mantra that she's throwing out there to everyone, and he somehow takes the thing, and then he goes off, and it's stuck to his face and it's imprinted in his face. And it's a great little scene where his friend like reads off his cheek, whatever.
Yeah, like, huh?
But
What?
of the one thing that he remembers though of the night is what she was talking about.
Yeah.
And it interested him. So out he goes. He goes, okay, where's the address? Okay, I'm going to go out there. Mm-hmm. And as he goes out there and he sits down and he talks to her, and she starts saying things, and then she finds out that he is in the space program, and suddenly she lights up, and his reaction is like, "Oh wait, you mean you dig this? The hell's wrong?" It's almost like you almost want him to say, "The hell is wrong with you, girl?"
Yeah.
This But as she's talking about it, she kind of throws her view out there, how it's like not war, how it's this, and how maybe that's a way to bring peace and some type of mission with it. Mm-hmm. And then you see him get excited, and you see him do a 180 when he comes back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's almost as if he's for what she's saying found this purpose, but at the same time, there's that little part that we come to see later that kind of like, how can I work this? How do I do this? How do I? And I didn't know there was going to be a kid. So,
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Complicates things, definitely. Yeah, well, and it's really fascinating because you get this whole, because of the fact that he is legitimately intrigued by her, by what she believes, by her perspectives on life. It's kind of the whole package. It's not just, oh, she's cute. Like, there's a whole thing that he's interested in, which is, again, not your typical Hollywood leading man kind of a interaction immediately. But then you also get the woven in thing that there are radicals trying to sabotage the Royal Space Force.
Yeah.
And, who's involved in that? Who knows what's going on? And then as the movie progresses, we just start seeing more and more of him becoming kind of, oddly, the guy that we always would want to be in this situation. Kind of the gung-ho, let's do this, I'm up for all the training, I'm up for all the things. And he's the only one kind of who cares in a real way. And
I think it's interesting that the training montages they used, if you look back at some of the early NASA films of training, it's like you had actually people doing these ridiculous things. Like the big centrifugal kind of machine. There's films from like the late 50s before they built the giant centrifuge where they're literally spinning them around, running around. Yep. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, good on you.
It reminded me of that one clip from was it The Right Stuff, where they show the guy where they're this sudden acceleration up into the air, then slowly bring him back down.
Yeah.
And then you can clearly, everyone's just like, how you doing? The guy's just like,
yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And there's a whole side story about that in the space race too, by the way, where they, they realized they wanted to push people as hard as they could, but they also realized they were working with like Chuck Yeager style guys who didn't want to be seen as weak. So they couldn't always trust what the people would report to them. And have to deal with all that kind of stuff too, of bravado and all that stuff. But yeah, that's a whole.
Well, how about the NASA program with the rocket sled, where the guy decelerated at like an obscene amount of G's, and it like burst all the blood vessels in his eyes, and like did terrible things to him. But he was just like, "Do it, let's do it. I want to go, 1,200 miles an hour in an open sled, then stop me in like less than 500 feet."
Yeah.
Like, oh God.
Yep.
But data. Oh, the data.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It takes a unique kind of person. And then again, what I find is so interesting is that this movie doesn't stop there. It then starts interlaying elements of culture of religion, of history, of what all this means for them as a society. For the fact that there is kind of a space race going on. There's not a space race, but a military race going on, that they have to be seen as powerful and so forth. And it's just it's complicated. There are many forces at work in any of these sorts of things. And again, I think it ties back to your audience, that they're saying, obviously the audience is kind of that otaku market, but it's speaking to all the things that that otaku care about in a very adult way. It's not just rockets are cool. It's there are politics and there's money.
Yeah.
They talk about how obscenely expensive this program is, and then you see shots in the street of people starving, and it's like I think that's very true. All right, so we've beaten around the bush. Let's get to the scene, which I cannot show you. But basically, there's a scene in this movie where our hero, Shirotsu, comes to see Rikini again. She's changing clothes, and so he gets up, goes over to her as she's changing, grabs her. She falls down. He falls on top of her. He tries to stop her. I rewatched this scene. Okay, and she's struggling. She grabs basically a trophy, hits him on the head, knocks him out.
Yeah.
Fade to black. That's it. It's never referenced again. There's no, there's no apology. There's no nothing, and it really comes out of nowhere in its own way. But I actually rewatched this scene today because I noticed something about it. Namely that when she's changing, he gets up and he starts striding across the room.
Yeah.
And you know what's happening. You know where this is going. And then, she's surprised. It happens very quickly. He grabs her, he goes in, and at least on my rewatching, it looked like he was going in to kind of embrace her and to sort of grab her. She reacts, they fall down, and they start struggling. And he's clearly kind of trying to stop her struggling and hold her down. And then she looks at him, and he stops.
Yeah.
And then she hits him on the head and knocks him out. And I realized, obviously, there is a sexual assault aspect to this. There's just no question there. Mm-hmm. But the way they phrased it wasn't as violent as when I first saw it. It came across to me like he clearly had a goal there. He was clearly trying to go for something there. But he wasn't coming at it with the
malice.
Malice, thank you. Yeah. And there was a certain amount of, I'm going to be the man now. I'm going to take charge. And I'm going to, do the thing that I've seen all these guys doing it. And it goes horribly wrong.
Yeah.
And I found it was very interesting to do that in a way that, again, in a lot of anime and a lot of pop culture, either this just works, let's be honest, the girl just gives in, or it's kind of danced around. And what I found interesting is how in this, they drive us to it and they kind of build up this dread. And when he tries it, it ends very poorly for him.
Right.
I still think it feels completely out of place. I think the intent is to say, he's been going out with this girl. There's been no sort of physical, evolution of that. He's frustrated. He's like, okay, I'm going to make my move. And he does it very poorly. And so you have the contrast of like that. And she's topless throughout the scene. So that's kind of, that comes at you as well.
Adulty.
Very, very adulty. And it just, it feels creepy in the moment, which I think is intentional. But then the fact that it's never addressed afterwards also feels shocking. And so I just it's one of those things where I'm like, I still feel like there was a better way of handling this.
Yeah, that's definitely. So for me, the whole scene actually started when they run back from the rain.
Mm-hmm.
She comes in, she takes off her boots. She's having the problem with one boot. It comes out, the change, the money comes out, and he looks at her, and he looks at her legs, he looks at her ankles, and that's when the moment starts. So he's not sure what to do here. It's what he wants. The frustration. We all know the frustration's there. We all know that this is what he wants.
Yep.
But she's not really willing to do that. That's not what she wants. She wants something else. And so there's this conflict, obviously, of interest, and then the whole scene pans out, and like we agreed, there wasn't malice. It wasn't that he was, I'm going to rape you, be creepy rapist guy. He's just like, I like you, I want you, I think you should feel the same way about me, so we're just gonna go and see what happens. And as we all agree, again, it goes terribly, horribly wrong in so many levels. So as he's, he comes, so, the struggle happens, they're down on the floor, he's trying to hold her down. He stops because he realizes what he's doing, and, and he's doing it, and he's like, hell no, what am I doing? This is just, you see it in his face. He feels bad. He knows that he's wrong.
Yeah.
And then, right. So he gets canned, and so he hits the floor. Now, did you notice in the background?
Yeah.
That the kid wakes up. The kid wakes up.
Yeah.
Sleepily looks around, sees what's happened, and almost just goes, almost as if, again, this is happening again, and goes back to sleep. The next morning comes up. Mana's walking out. She doesn't say anything. He wakes up. He chases after her. And that's, the scene is bad enough, right?
Yeah.
Then he comes out, and he's trying to apologize, which he needs to do. And he's going out there, and she's just like, oh, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
It's my fault. Because I had to be able to forgive myself. And the look on his face, at least there was that look on his face of WTF. Like, no, I'm the bad guy. Me. He knows it. And then, like you say, Brent, once that happens, it's almost as if, okay, we're going to just go walk away from this thing that we don't really know how to wrap up in a pretty little bow, and we're just not going to reference it again, and we're just going to move forward. And, it could have just been really simple. He could have come around, saw her half naked, and she could have put a love Hina and gone, how dare you? Everything's fine.
Right.
Because we get it. Punishment is served. He knows he's wrong. She's right. He was being a jerk. He apologizes. He deserves the smack. Then we can move on because the things that need to be settled are settled. You have no settlement of this throughout the rest of the movie. You carry that with you the rest of the movie that he's done this, and there's really no rectifying it. There's no solution, nothing.
And there are two important things about that. I'm really glad you brought that up. One is, it should be pointed out, there is a culture of saying it's not your fault, or of sort of forgiveness culture in Japan. If somebody says, oh, I apologize, you go, no, it's okay, right? Even if it is, or even if it's not, that's still just kind of what you're expected to say. Right. I'm not saying that's the right thing for them to do in this situation, whatever, but that is a common sort of just response to things. But two, I think that is also kind of intentional. That colors their relationship for the rest of the film. And you can tell he feels, he feels about it for the rest of the film. And again, I do appreciate that at least they wove that into it, of saying this isn't just something that it's okay now. That happened.
Well, seeing this again, because I had seen, you had recommended it eons ago, so I watched it then and watched it again. And it's like, for this experience, where she apologizes, and mind you, everything is in its milieu. You have to look at the time frame that this was made.
1986.
I got stuck thinking about a couple of years ago where there was a female voice actress or a female actress in Japan, and she had to apologize to her harasser.
Yeah.
To like preserve her career. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I just had that dissonant moment where it was like, clonging me upside the head with the trophy, where I'm like, you're apologizing to him to sustain this relationship, and he is entirely in the wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you should have more than just hit him with a trophy. You should have clubbed him for a little while with the trophy. And then never forgiven him. Mm-hmm. And yet, like this thing that happened in the 21st century. Oh, I'm so sorry. Let's restore the relationship and make sure things are all going forward and doing as we need to do. It's like, oh my goodness, no, please.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's kind of the what they're going for here is that, she's just trying to plaster over the relationship so it can continue, because this is the only, adult in her life, really, that really cares for her in this way. And
she certainly alludes to Mana's parents, which that Mana is from a broken home and that not her daughter. But she certainly alludes to Mana has seen all kinds of terrible things. So I can appreciate.
Yeah. She's
trying to sort of normalize things so Mana doesn't just stand there and wail.
Yeah.
Because Mana doesn't really talk. She only says a handful of things the whole entire film because obviously she's psychologically scarred. Mm-hmm. So I get where Rikini's coming from, trying to basically keep all the balls in the air while she's juggling, but it's just like, his little maneuver just got me gritting my teeth, like,
you really wanted to say, it's really okay if you want to give him a swift kick.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
He he probably would say, "Thank you, I deserve that," because clearly he's wrong. But that was one of the things where you brought up a good point, John. Where taking the time period where it's done. It's 1986 is when this was made, and definitely the thoughts and ideas of 86 is a lot different than 2020. And in 2020, that's not a scene that would happen. That would not be in there. That would not be a thing. And if it was a thing, then the movie would take in a whole different direction because it would have been
handled far differently.
And because of that, because that would have been the thing that changed the movie.
Yeah.
No. So it's just so but it's still jarring to know. So like part of me was like the hashtag Me Too movement. I'm like, wow, this is not gonna this would never fly. With that, so this would never happen. But then again, it's I grew up in the 80s, and so we're familiar with those kinds of tropes and stuff. And I'm not saying that I went around and shoved girls onto the ground and did things, but saying that clearly there is still an understanding of this is wrong. And the fact that there was no real resolution of that.
And I think the film is interesting from that perspective of basically saying this happens a lot, and Mana's reaction indicates this happens a lot. Think about it, won't you? Basically.
Yeah.
I also want to take a pause and look at chat here real quick because Jay Biz brings up a really interesting point that Shirotsu actually has some of the hallmarks of having like PTSD. Going back to that initial apocalypse, now seeing he kind of has that shell-shocked behavior in him to an extent in the film. And you can see his sort of mental development throughout the film of his sort of growing stronger and stronger. So I think one of the interesting ways that you can look at the film through is from that perspective of not mental illness, but of mental problems. That Mana obviously has issues. Maybe Shirotsu has mental issues that he's working through, that he's trying to figure out. And that kind of plays into that scene too. And, obviously, Rikini has her own mental hang-ups or her own mental, perspectives on things too. And that those are all sort of bouncing off each other in complex ways in the movie. So yeah, it's a tough scene because it does kind of come out of nowhere. Well, come out of nowhere, but it is not a scene that the movie is hinting at is going to come, and then it comes and it's over in like 15 seconds. And it's just very, very shocking. And then we kind of accelerate into the ending, where they're actually going to move forward and they're actually going to go to space. And what I find so fascinating about this is that, you know, by this point in the film, you're like, okay, I know where this is going, right? Like, he's obviously going to get strapped to the rocket. He's obviously going to go up. You know, that's going to happen. And then there's an air raid. And it's just so interesting because on the one hand, you know, again, it's being made for otaku. Like, what would make a cool ending? You know, a rocket launch is fine, but let's not stop there. That's not exciting enough. Let's also have a battle going on at the same time.
Let's go violate neutral territory by building this rocket complex in the middle of this border country. Yeah, let's do that. That sounds like a super plan.
Brilliant. Whereupon you get, I would argue, one of the finest works of aircraft animation ever put on film.
It's pretty damn awesome.
Yeah.
So, of the stuff that I've seen of this movie in the past, because this is the first time I've actually seen it all the way through, I've seen like clips just like on YouTube, like 2-3 minute clips, whatever, here and there. But usually, what I see are AMVs, and it's almost always the raid scene and the flying and just the different aircraft and how they move about, explode and crash, and how people are flying and there's no ACO jumping around. But no, seriously. Yeah. But the AMVs, AMVs are always just kind of showing that, and it's just this great. One of the big things I really liked about this is that this was a World War I dogfight setup, in that they used World War II plane technology in a World War I setup. If you watch how they come in and then how they go around each other and start the dogfight, the dogfight started to expand in area as the technology and speed of the aircraft grew. In the anime, they kept it concise within over top of the rocket. of the neutral area, and that was really great because you saw when they pull back from the scenes onto the ground, and you have the great ground action, which reminded me of the first scene in Patlabor 2.
Yeah.
But anyway, they pull back and you see both planes, and the great part about the planes is that they're so distinctive from each other. So even though they were little dots in the animation, you knew who was who. And the way that they were fighting, it was so compact, it was really great. And the ground fighting, I remember you guys saying something about how like the ground fighting was really the action was really cool, and it really did remind me of. I really think is it Patlabor 2 where the blimp is involved?
I forget
that one. I think that's 2. And in the beginning of 2, it shows the main villain.
I'll take your word for it.
It shows the main villain in actually what looks like one of those tanks that was actually used in Royal Space Force, and just how the explosions and detritus moves around it. And I'm sorry, you were saying cult earlier, Brent, and I saw the enemy coming in and the way that they have those face masks. I'm like, which cult is this invading this country? What are we trying to do here?
Yeah.
But it was just really interesting, and also how the area around the liftoff area where the bunkers were actual World War bunkers and trenches. That's the trench system, World War I trench system that they set up there. And I was like thinking to myself, like going, as you're pointing out, Brent, you can't just launch a rocket out of nowhere. You have to have all this going on, or else it's going to be boring.
Right.
You have to have all this, death and destruction going on around you, and meanwhile the guys, you have to have the scene of, darn it, we're going to continue forward. And but they're all in there, and it's just like, and just the level of tenseness I love, which is, with if just guys sitting in front of computers, steampunk almost like computers, and things ticking and moving, and just like the wonderful detail of the gears and all this stuff, and the little lights counting down. You have no idea what
they're saying. So the numbering system was just this sort of cyan colored thing clicking down, like.
And so I'm just like going, you can't just have this thing lift off. But so it was just one. What I'm trying to say is, to lump it into easier words, it was beautiful. It was just a beautiful. It's a battle scene an animated battle scene that was beautiful, and I haven't seen that in a very, very long time. One thing I will note about our hero is that, did you notice that they made a point of him combing back his hair?
I did not notice that.
So when he was getting ready for to get put into the suited up and everything, he looks at himself in the mirror for a very long time, and he actually combs back his hair, because his hair is always this, and he brushes it back because he has to, and he puts his phones on so he keeps it out of his face. And to me, that was like the point at which he grew up, finally, where the purpose sets in, and this is, I can't be this guy anymore. So he comes it back, and he stops being that guy. Meanwhile, the battle's raging all around.
and again, I think this is, so many of these things are otaku making a statement about, because it's not just about rocket launch versus war. They had to design those tanks. They had to figure out where the battle lines were, so that on the background they could draw that there to have the smoke coming out from there. All these little bits and pieces were all thought through, and they all sell. You believe every detail of this. There's just
I like the fact that for the detail of the rocket, as opposed to using like the Saturn V, they use a Soyuz class. It's a Soviet, multi-rocket giant thunder stick. And it's just like, that's a very stylistically interesting choice for a rocket.
Absolutely, and it's just fascinating, because you see all these things happening. And it provides this interesting thing, because again, I think part of the interesting thing is, again, getting back to what you're saying about context. By the late '80s, we have shuttle launches, and we have that thing where, okay, space has become mundane. Launching to space has become just a thing that we do, and so making a movie where the climax is simply the liftoff of a rocket doesn't have the same punch as, will these planes take it out before it gets up? And so the tension of those moments, and the tension of seeing it launch, and then seeing it launch, I mean, even to this moment, is just, watching it again, it brings tears to your eyes.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Now, for a historical perspective, true historical perspective, whenever a manned launch goes up, I can't say this for other space agencies, but for NASA, the Air Force sends up a plane alongside it to prevent any missiles or
a chase plane.
It's a chase plane to make sure that nobody interferes with that. So, as I'm watching this, I was just like going, which probably added more to it. I was just like going, oh yeah, I remember them telling us about flying F-16s. But then as the launch goes up, and the reason why the launch is so important is that when you see the reactions of the fighter pilots, they're just like flying. They're just going,
holy crud! Yep.
Well, everybody in the field too. They're engaged in a tank battle. There's an infantry assault. Then everybody's like,
I could just see the one lieutenant there going, "Come on, guys, why are you stopped? Why are you right Sir, just
look up. Look up.
Which, again, there's that theme of the movie. Nobody cares until it actually works.
Yeah.
And now we've actually proved what's going on. I have a friend who hated the end of this movie. Not this, but what happens next. The fact that you have this whole thing they actually launch, and then he could not understand what was going on. Because you have this long, like 10-minute, I think, montage sequence, like 7-8 minute montage sequence of all this stuff. And it's the history of the planet. It's the history of their civilization, and it's all leading up to this point, which I think is such a fascinating, such a thoughtful way of bringing all these themes together, of saying, you know, space is not just cool. It's not just something that we want to do because we think it's interesting. It's not for all these other things. It's also because this is the next step, right? This is part of the whole journey all the way through. And it really just provides that context for, you know, what's been going on all this way through. And even there, again, you think they had to think through all these costumes, all these locations, all of that. And it creates this just fascinating sense of drama in the broader sense. That this has become opera, right? In an amazing way.
Well, imagine the storyboarding for this must have been incredible.
Exactly.
Must have been everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to need a warehouse, and we're going to need about 65,000 square feet to storyboard all of this so we can piece this all out into the places it needs to be.
No kidding.
Did you notice, too, that Ricchini's, when he's reading the book, and they're talking about, oh, you know, humankind lived happily along with the gods without fire until someone stole fire. And I'm like, Prometheus? Is this... Yeah. Okay, interesting. So we're incorporating a little Greek myth in there.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, that gives us a contemporary context.
Definitely.
One of the things I found interesting about that little bit of the movie was that, you know, as he's reading the story and he's soaking it in, the story is basically about how, you know, humanity has damned itself, and that's one of the things that he has to you know come across, and one of the things that, you know, he and his friends are, you know, always at odds with, or, you know, they kind of know that it's all part of the military-industrial complex. They all know that it's part of that, that it is.
Yeah.
Still get offended when people start saying, "Oh, yeah, we're going to put some type of weapon on this thing," and it has to, you know, whatever, to justify this cost, or, you know, whatever.
Yeah, the Great Warship. Like,
I can just see it. I go, okay, I'm opening up with the hatch. I got my slingshot.
Right. Yeah.
Paint like guns on the side of it.
Right.
Like, not mount anything, but just literally paint a picture and take a photo, be like, hey, warship. Like, gotcha.
But they get offended by it. But, you know, it just makes him, you know, makes you wonder if this is what you believe, that humanity is damned because they take the technology, and the technology is what, you know, is what's causing all the problems, according to this book. Yeah. Then he's rectifying what he's trying to do, and at the same time understand why she's, on one hand, excited but also disappointed when she realizes that this is all part of like a bigger national plan almost. Yeah. You know, just like, oh, I thought we were just going to go to the stars because we can and bring peace back. You know, instead of like him reading, oh no, we're all damned because we're going, yep, and they just told me I'm going to put a weapon on this thing.
Yeah.
Great.
And it's why it's such a wonderfully mature film. Not in the sense of, you know, boobs and blood, but in the sense of it is dealing with really serious themes. You know, Pandora's Box, right? Like that is to an extent what they're opening up here, and nothing comes at a cost.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that it ends, you know, after everything, with Rukini, basically, on a street corner, going out to do her thing. It ends with a human, right? Of just someone going out and doing what she believes is right, you know, day after day, you know, no matter the cost, really, in a way. It's just kind of a beautiful way of ending the film, and of course the planet and the stars.
Well, of course, I also love it in Shiro's when he does his monologue there at the end. The fact that he kind of flips around looking for a channel, and then starts broadcasting. Like, wow, that, you know, the space program was pretty tightly scripted most of the time. So the idea that in this kind of funky military industrial world in which they live with, the Royal Space Force program, privately basically funded by the monarchy, that you just flip the channel and be like, we need peace in the world. Everyone needs to come. Like, really? I would have thought they would have given you one channel, and that's to their location, and then they will broadcast afterwards your speeches. Like,
right? Because can you imagine like being that one ham radio operator, just like, and if you're listening down there on Earth, wait, what?
Well, I mean,
what?
This is, I mean, granted, this is the thing that we went through during the space program on Earth, where NASA was really worried about what those astronauts could say, because they could have just started dropping F-bombs in the middle of their broadcasts, and the whole world would have heard it, because, those were getting re-sent out. Can't control that too much. But yeah.
Before there were Zoom meetings, there was, is this mic on?
Right.
Yeah. This is one small step for, son of a... No! Let him off!
Yeah.
The FCC is going to revoke our license.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The FCC is going to cancel the space program. Wait a minute. What? They don't have the authority.
Wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, and it's why the movie, I think, leaves so many people feeling such complex emotions. Like, obviously you end on kind of this big, expansive thought, but you've been through so much in this movie. There's really a lot there, which I think is one of the reasons it's so impressive, is that it's kind of oddball, but it is so, I think the word for it, ambitious. In how much it's trying to do for the audience.
Right.
Well, they got, from what I read, like they really did get the right people on this program. I mean, obviously the people from Daikon and the voice actors, even the American English voice. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw that list.
Yeah.
I think someone said Bryan Cranston. Cranston was on there.
Yeah.
Although someone said, according to it, it said Steve Bloom was on there, but I couldn't find his voice.
Steve Boulin, different voice actor.
Boulin, okay. I misread that then. But one of the other things was that the music was done by Ryuichi Sakamoto. And he, for those of you who don't know who he is, he did a lot of the score for The Revenant, at the Leonardo DiCaprio movie that he won an Oscar for.
Yeah.
He did the score for that. He was partially he was one of three people who did the score for that. He did score for
Last Emperor.
Last Emperor, that's it. Yeah, wow. He won. Was he nominated or did he win the Academy Award for that?
I'm not sure.
But he was also part of a group in the early 80s, late 70s called YMO, Yellow Music Orchestra, if I remember correctly. And Ryuichi Sakamoto is an experimental musician, so he's the one who forwarded a lot electronic music in Japan. So he's the one he's the guy who actually broke down keyboards, resynthesized things, physically reworked things to make new sounds.
Wow!
In Japan, and he's done a lot.
Smashed up the old Moog keyboard. And
think Moog. Think Next Generation Moog, and that's Sakamoto. And he's done a lot of jazz albums. He was probably
interesting.
Yoko Kanno, the equivalent of Yoko Kanno in the early '80s.
I gotcha. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, for Japanese animation, for anime animation. So his name is everywhere. So when I heard the music and I was like, going, this sounds really familiar. Then the credits brought up his name. I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. And then watching the credits, I actually watched the credits like twice to pick up on certain things. And I was just like amazed by what was behind. Because sometimes you get some of these wonderful things and you don't know who the hell these people are. Then sometimes you watch these things and you realize, my God, if they knew what kind of careers they're going to have later on with this.
Yeah.
I think this was like a touchdown for a lot of those people where it's just like going, I was going nowhere, and then I did this little thing called Wings of Hanamaze, and then suddenly, for some reason, my career just...
The director was 24 when he made this movie. Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Went on to do Mahomet and Abenobashi and other stuff. He also wrote the screenplay for Gundam 0080, which for those of you who've seen it, you'll be like, yep, that fits.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is considered one of the great Gundam, works. And for all that, it was a budget of 800 million yen for this movie. It was insanely expensive, especially by Japanese standards.
Wow.
Yeah, they just poured money into this. They were just absolutely certain about this. Hayao Miyazaki praised it when it came out, and it made less than half its budget in box office.
Right.
Wow.
It bombed. So for all that work...
Mugen Train it is.
Wow.
No. Yes, you think of all this stuff, all the work they put into it, all the effort, and it was, unfortunately, it's one of those classic sort of cult fan films where people who saw it loved it, but they were the only ones who saw it.
Well, given the number of years, has it in the long run at least gotten somewhere within ballpark of budget?
And that's the thing. I have no idea. But what's interesting is that this was kind of the springboard for Gainax's career, where folks were like, "Oh, you did that thing? Yes, do more. You worked on that movie. Yes, you obviously know what you're doing." So it's kind of one of those calling card movies.
We're not gonna give you 800 million yen.
Right? Yeah.
we're gonna work on something.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it was very it was a really big deal. And it was really interesting about how this is one of those things that just I think is. I have yet to see anybody who watched it and was like, it was okay. It provokes strong reactions out of people. Some folks don't like it much, but still kind of recognize what's in there. But I think it's remarkable. It really is a remarkable film. Anything else you want to bring up?
Scene was great.
Sorry, say again.
I was just going to say the assassin chase scene was great. It was amazing.
I can find that.
So one of the this is me being not so technical, but just kind of like detaily, is that when the assassin is popping shots off at our heroes, it seemed like the firearm that he was holding was a gravity pellet firearm because he kept bringing it back, and I didn't see him do any hand motions.
Interesting.
So there is an actual air rifle from back in the 1700s that worked on this principle where you used gravity to bring it down, and it was an air shot good up to about 100 yards. Cool. And so I don't know if that was one of those things because, as we've discussed, the technology in this is just a wide array of just like patchwork stuff, steampunk almost, and just wonderful gear work. And then the assassin had this like almost toy gun thing looking. But he just kept having to go like this, and you hear the click, and then it was just a little pop.
Yeah.
And but like I was saying, the chase scene was really great. And one of the things that surprised me is that when they, normally when you see a chase scene going through an alley, and then you see one of them squeeze into a tiny alley, what you see is what you get out on the other end. Instead, you got a good, nice little 3-4 second segment of them smash between walls and like the side thing. It's like, wait. Get away from me! You're the one who's attacking. She's attacking, not me. Get away! And he's just moving this very claustrophobic space very quickly. And it was just, of course, it was just who knew that a street cleaning vehicle would be a weapon of death.
Yeah.
Well, I also found it very interesting that for all of the, the bravado of the jet guys and the airplane guys, that Shiro's in large measure. But for that experience, he's not a very forward-pushing kind of character.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And in the assassin scene, it's got the humorous moment where he's, it's almost kind of like, ping, whoop, huh? What? What was that? But in the end, for all the laying around, eating buns, and fighting with sticks, he actually draws his ceremonial dagger and does the soldier thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He gets onto that street cleaner and he does away with the assassin like a military guy.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like that's really interesting because you see a lot of his development in the rest of the film, and then you get that flash of unfilteredness with Ricchini there in the the bedroom area in the yurt.
Yep.
And then this, you get that testosterone-driven, adrenaline guerrilla response to fight or flight. And he is in flight until he can no longer do it, and then it is fight. So that's some interesting elements where you have sort of a low hum, a spike of something, then a low hum, then a spike of something, and a low hum. It's like that's just really interesting to do it that way.
And I think that could also speak back to those themes of possible PTSD, of being a soldier who's seen some things and is trying to process it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. You wonder.
Well, did they write anything about any of the inspiration of this stuff? Did the Gynax kids sit down and write things down and be like, here's why we did what we did?
I'm sure there is. And I'm able
Anybody?
to find it in English, Annoying. There's a lot of stuff, by the way, on Wikipedia about this. If you want to dig into a lot of the background of some of the elements on that, particularly stuff around like the visuals and where they're trying to come from. There's a thing there about just about like how they drew the characters and what they were going for in terms of visually and such. The fact that they were trying to make their they said that they well, Yamaga, one of the folks involved, remarked, "What I see now is surprising. The character Ricchini is nothing but me. Shiro is definitely not me. If you ask me where I'd position myself in the film, I identify myself as Ricchini in many aspects in terms of the way I think. I was probably somebody weird and religious ever since my childhood. So folks talking about how much of themselves sort of came out in the movies in ways that they did not expect. And the fact that they were very thoughtful about whether the character should react, whether the facial reactions should be anime-like. Should they have outsized reactions? Should they be doing the standard mugging, things along those lines?
Right.
So forth and so on. And by the way, Hayao Miyazaki himself, one of his two criticisms of the film is that the rocket looks like a Soviet rocket, and said, you got everything else different.
Yeah.
Why didn't the rocket look like unlike a Soyuz rocket? So fair enough. And then just other bits and pieces about like who worked on which parts and how they made progress on all that stuff. Speaking of which, if you're interested in the folks behind this, there's a wonderful live-action comedy series called Blue Blazes, or was it Aoi? I'm forgetting the name of it. It's called Blue Blazes. It's a comedy about the college class in which the founding members of Gynax all met each other. They all went to college together, basically.
Wow. Okay.
And it is told from the perspective of a guy who went to that class with them and is sort of narrating what it was like being in an art class with Hideaki Anno and, Yamaga and all of these guys, and how they would just sort of, just draw something and be like, oh, how did you do that? I just did it, here, whatever. And just those experiences were like. It's a really interesting sort of slice of life. Or, look at the anime industry.
What it was like to be in a class who blew the entire curve out of the damn class.
And what's cool is you get to see, and they actually reference a number of real world things that happened, of like short films that they made, and it builds up to Daikon 3. Basically, that's the big climax is they make him back onto animation. It's not what I like about it is it's not. This is a bit of a tangent. They try to follow like history, like historical things that happened, and present the people in ways that are clearly characters, but also very much caricatures of what they're really like. So it's not trying to be false to them. It's sort of it's broad in their interpretation of those characters, and just showing how they kind of evolved throughout time, what they're trying to go for, and so forth and so on. So if you want to see, Hideaki Anno analyze early Hayao Miyazaki animation in front of a television, like there you go. It's kind of a neat view into those things.
Interesting. Okay.
Anyway, those are our thoughts on the Royal Space Force Wings of Honimise. Definitely an amazing film. And so 2 thumbs up. And so now we're going to move on to some other things. Going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with some news. We will see you all in just a few minutes.
I have break time. Woohoo! 4 foot more. running from basement back up to here to put the laundry on airflow.
Oh yeah.
Sounds like they're sort of not grounded dreamers. I mean, that's kind of what's going on there. Like, okay. But at least they're acknowledged by Miyazaki.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That there's cred to that alone. He's aware of them. I see a tiny little image. Oh no, it's getting bigger. Okay, here we are. Okay. A little more Nausicaa-ish. With boobs and an assault scene. Yeah. That's super.
All right.
Nothing says family fun than boobs. Okay. Okay, good, because 86 was the Krista McAuliffe part. That's not probably the thing you want to animate, really.
So we were in my junior high school. We were all sitting in the cafeteria watching that lift off, and it exploded, and all the teachers just went. All right, time to go back to class. Really, what happened?
Ooh!
That'd be kind of awesome. Actually.
North America's got it going on. We're rocking now. Maybe there's hope for this market yet. Maybe.
So apparently mics are still switched on for that. That's weird. I thought I turned those off. That's odd.
Well, it's a little view in behind the curtain.
Exactly. Imagine that.
Don't look behind the curtain.
Exactly.
Ignore the people. Ignore the men behind the curtain.
Brent, the great wizard.
Ah,
Behind
yes,
the curtain.
Exactly. So Patrick Haggerty asks, is it worth watching through the whole Kenshin series? Watch through seasons 1 and 2. You do not need to watch season 3. Seasons 1 and 2 are manga plot. Season 3 is entirely filler. Apparently, like, there's some fun stuff in season 3, but it's just, it has nothing to do with anything else. So you can watch seasons 1 and 2. That's what I did, and that was all I needed to see. That was great, and then you watch the OVAs, and you're good. Until they go back and eventually remake Kenshin, which they will, I'm sure, eventually. Because that is an increasing number. Although now that they've done the live action movies, they may not. I don't know. That could hold them off for a while.
Well, we didn't get another Inuyasha. We got
right?
the kids of Inuyasha. So maybe there's a grandson of Kenshin.
That's true. Well, and there is Watsuki did draw a manga set 10 years later with. Have any of you seen any of Kenshin?
I've seen what was broadcast on Adult Swim.
So you know the
Cartoon Network.
Yeah, the little kid in there, the kind of spunky kid with the bookend. It's him as an adult.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's sort of him following him, and you see other characters around. It's like a one chapter manga special that he drew, kind of see where the characters were. So they could totally do that. Yeah, they could do like a spin-off future event thing. That'd be fun. They might not include him because of some of the issues with Watsuki and some of the things that he did that makes him a much more controversial person now. If anyone remembers from the news about that a couple years ago. Yeah, when he was discovered with various in possession of various images and video that he should not own. Yes, he should not have possession of. So
yeah,
we'll see. Anyway, how y'all doing?
Fine so far. Still have a pulse.
Yep, doing all right.
Glad to hear that.
Still watching more of the new seasons of everything else.
Cool.
Still loving Kuma Bear.
Nice.
Did you, John? Did you see the picture I put on Discord?
No, I did not see it yet.
Kuma Bear.
But the death puppets of bear puppets.
The bear puppets of doom. What was it, Brent? You found out it was a light novel.
Yes, it is based on a light novel, which is now out in the U.S.
Yes. Oh, cool.
You can get the first three, and one thing I really appreciate, they released the first 3 volumes all at once. So if you want to just go out and read the first one you can, or you can get to the first 3 and get a good sense of that. I think there are 6 or 7 total, something like that.
That's not too bad.
Yeah.
So because I certainly have enjoyed the cuteness of the show. Mm-hmm. That's for absolutely sure.
And the descriptions I see of the light novel certainly match what I've seen of the show. Like I don't think there's much variation at this point.
I would imagine it'd be kind of hard to vary from it because it's not a very deep plot.
Yeah.
Sort of like the Sleepy Princess.
Mm-hmm.
It's just cute. It's just a neat little, take on things. And I'm sure whatever its source material is not more complex than what that anime is.
So it takes a kite turn. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
No.
I've been, other than Weezer Honey's, I've watched a little bit more of Girl and Dino.
Oh, yeah.
Dino. I know what I say,
Gal and Dino.
Gal and Dino. I can't. It's a train wreck, and I'm going to talk more about that later on a different channel. But it's a train wreck. But it's just like I just watched this one episode where it was like there's this dude who's apparently in the anime a TV personality who runs around in black speedos and a black leather cowboy hat, and he makes faces, and that's his shtick.
Okay.
And he comes into the real world of Gal and Dino, and Dino's a big fan. So there's this entire episode of these two mugging around, and you're just like going, why do I feel like I'm about to watch something horribly wrong here? Doesn't quite
something that requires a paid subscription.
Yeah, something that was just like going. I almost felt like going, wait, am I old enough to watch this? I'm not sure. So,
Takashi Miike guest directed or something? Like, what's going on here? Yeah.
The word pink was involved.
Yeah.
Oh, buddy. No.
Yeah, I've been watching more. I'm not caught up yet, but I watched a few more episodes of The Day I Became a God, which I continue to be very impressed by. They basically started making every episode a parody of something. So episode 3 is a restaurant rescue parody, where there's a local restaurant that's doing poorly, so she basically explains to him how to go in and be Gordon Ramsay, at the restaurant.
Okay.
So it's all the, and there's this like very lovely young woman working behind the counter, and he goes in and immediately like, "You need to fix everything you're doing." All this, okay, geez,
Thank you, random stranger.
And just goes on from there.
911.
Episode 4, what was that a parody? Oh, it's a parody of like I think I'm just gonna have to spoil this one of like intense board game anime, where you're playing shogi or you're playing Go or like a Kagura no Go, whatever, and you're playing all that. He enters a mahjong tournament, and it's one of these very it's an amateur tournament, but everyone in there has played for a while, and they very much encourage amateurs who think really fresh about mahjong. So he just starts making up rules. He's terrible at it. There's no way he can win. So he just starts making up different ways of like matching tiles. And you're like, well, these both have the same character in Japanese, so they match. He just kept doing them. And of course, everyone's like, ooh, that's very fresh. That's very interesting. My goodness, what is he doing? And while there's a pro player there who's just going, what? Like why?
Yeah.
That's not.
You can't. No.
No. That's smart. I think we should allow that. Yes. Well, let's see where he's going with this. And it just continues and continues. So it's fun. And I also do have a little bit more of a sense of what they mean by the end of the world, and I do think it's going to hurt. Because that is where that show is, yep, I think
where that train's going.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. But
yeah, I finally found it. It up to whatever the current episode is. It just suddenly dropped one through like 8.
Huh, okay.
So it's like, oh, okay, no, I put that aside for the minute.
Yeah.
Put it aside. Get on with this.
Yeah, I will report to see where that goes and the point at which it flips.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure it's going to happen at some point. But yeah.
It'll be episode 12, so that you'll tune in to season 2.
Oh, no, it's going to be, given it's June Maeda, it's going to be episode 9 or 10. Because episodes 11 and 12 will rip your heart out, and that'll be the end forever.
Oh,
That'll
God.
be it. There'll just be no nothing, no sequel. Because it's a visual novel, right? Like, it's just, this is what happens,
Right.
This is the end, and we're moving on. Yeah. And if it's going where I think it is, it can't recover from that.
Ugh.
Yeah. So we'll see. I don't know, but it's interesting.
Now I'm afraid to start watching it. Now that I know I've got it to the side, I'm like,
we'll see.
Watch
We'll
it.
see. So I'll let you know.
Because here at the Weekly Dig, we like the Punisher. So.
Yeah.
Yes, clearly. We'll just wait until 2 weeks from now. So in the chat they're saying
What? We're watching a slapstick comedy? Huh?
Oh yeah.
Huh?
Oh yeah. It's a comedy.
Errors. No.
It is pretty much. In the chat they're saying they want an anime or something. It's got into a washing machine. And yeah, there's a vending machine one. There's somebody that's got into a vending machine. You're absolutely right, Jay. I think it's literally called "I Got Reincarnated into a Vending Machine," and it's actually kind of funny.
Thank goodness it's not a serious story. The love of a vending machine and the Pepsi machine across the way.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, there's a woman who is very physically blessed who befriends the vending machine and carries it around on her back. And that's how he gets from one place to another, because she's befriended the vending machine. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, it's clearly parodying
Interesting
isekai.
premise.
Really having fun with the concept.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Boy.
I came across a manga which I haven't started yet, but I really want to. And let me actually make sure I get the title right, because I downloaded it and I'm curious if anyone else has read it yet. I have to go over to my digital stuff. It's called Love at 14. And apparently it's this very sweet romantic comedy about boy and a girl who are 14.
14.
And they've known each other for a long time. They're childhood friends. They are kind of the king and queen of school, so I think sort of a Kaguya-sama sort of level, that kind of thing. Except they've been friends for so long, whenever they're hanging out alone, they just have the time of their lives. Like, they really enjoy spending time with each other, and they're goofy, and they're just, really fun with that. But they, obviously they can't do that at school, because they're seen as kind of these paragons of school. But then they fall for each other. And it's kind of chronicling how that complicates, that relationship at school. And then, when they're hanging out and enjoying each other, they're like, oh, now this is different. And it's just kind of exploring how that, affects their relationship. And apparently it's very sweet. It's very, very nice. But also just kind of about what, your young love, basically. So looking forward to trying that out. Sounds like a fun one. And it is.
Meanwhile, I've been watching.
See what?
I was just gonna say. Meanwhile, I've been watching clips on YouTube of very old Dragon Ball, where Goku and Krillin are in the tournament for the first time.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And they're fighting, and I don't. Clearly, I was drinking at this time because I don't remember any of it when I was watching it. But
it was high art, Steve. How'd you miss out on that?
Yeah.
Well, menthol malt liquor, menthol flavored malt liquor,
Menthol malt liquor.
Wow.
Oh wow.
But yes, there was once such a thing, Chap.
The mind erase Ray. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. But I'm watching it now, and I think I might have to drop back into Dragon Ball and find that area. I'm not gonna watch the whole thing, but I'm just gonna find that one story arc and watch it all the way through, because I find myself wildly amused by it, and I totally forgot that I knew Krillin was at a temple before he came onto the series. I did not realize he was bullied at that temple.
Oh, I remember that.
And that he did, and then he actually confronts his tormentors at the tournament.
Oh,
and so
cool.
and it's about the time where Goku's kind of looking around and he realizes how much stronger he and Krillin and a couple other people are than anybody else in the tournament, and he's like, maybe we shouldn't be going all out on these guys.
Yeah.
We might actually kill someone. So, and it's also nice to see a Dragon Ball where it's not 20 episodes of
That's
Power
my favorite. That period up until like partway into that tournament is like my favorite part of Dragon Ball. Like, I love all that early Dragon Ball stuff where it's just them bouncing around and having fun adventures. Yeah. And it's adventure as opposed to
like when Bulma. Yeah, back when Bulma and Yamcha were a thing, when Yamcha was actually a character who didn't say, well, you guys go on ahead because I know I'm the weakest of the bunch. I'm just going to be reduced to a crimson stain at the bottom of the crater. So you all have fun. Go on. Because that's what he turns into by the end of Dragon Ball Z. He's just a crumpled up meme.
Pretty much, yeah. Did y'all hear that? I'm just going to assume our mics are always on. Like, let's just say, let's just go there. It's interesting. So welcome to the latest anime news for the week ending December 5th, 2020. Let us dive into it, ladies and gents, beginning with a follow-on. Today is Lelouch's birthday.
Oh.
I have all sorts of adjectives for Lelouch. To celebrate, the Code Geass franchise held a live stream revealing the future of the series. The Code Geass Next 10 Years project revealed both a new upcoming anime series and a new smartphone game, of course. The new anime is titled Code Geass Z of the Recapture, or Z, could be. The event teased the new anime using the ending of the previous anime of the franchise, 2019's Code Geass Lelouch of the Resurrection film. Last year, the film's producer called it Phase 1 of a 10-year plan for new content. The new smartphone game, Code Geass Genetic Recode, brings together Lelouch, Akito, and other characters from the anime projects and lets players experience stories from throughout the franchise. It includes both role-playing and simulation gameplay elements and features original scenarios from leading Sunrise writers and many exclusive illustrations. It is described by the staff as, quote, the official sequel to the Code Geass franchise, end quote, and will be developed by Joro with animation sequences from Sunrise. It is set to launch in spring of next year, so fans won't have to wait too long. The original Code Geass premiered back in 2006, with a sequel series in 2008, and has inspired a number of anime series, films, OVAs, and spin-off manga series. Now, let's be honest, this is not the first time we've seen, anime expand into other media, but and this probably isn't the first time we've seen a smartphone game see official content in spin-offs. But I think this is the first time I can recall hearing of a smartphone game described as like the official sequel. That sounds kind of interesting to me.
I think it's the only time I've ever heard as an official sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't recall hearing that before. And it kind of frustrates me like I am. Or you're horribly bad at it, or at least because I'm still stuck on Civ 1. Then having
by choice. Choosing it.
You should see me play Legend of Zelda. Anyway, so
you're playing Zork too, are you?
No. But on the it's one of those things where if that's the way the franchise is going to go, I'm going to be like, that sucks.
That is a downside. Is what if folks just aren't into the game side of it? Yeah. I don't know.
Just wish I was a better gamer than I would be okay, but I'm just horrible.
Well, I mean, at some point in time, I'm hopeful that for all of the terrible animes that have come out that have been based off of like mobile games, that maybe they'll sort of convert it into the anime version of that mobile game, and we'll get more answers. But
well,
hopefully it's done well.
And also, let's be honest, all of these clips will make it onto YouTube at some point, right? Like, they'll all be shown somewhere.
Yeah, like a playthrough of the whole entire storyline. Yeah.
So, it's interesting. Speaking of cool anime, January of 2020 feels like decades ago, so it's hard to remember anime that aired at the beginning of this year, like Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken. The New York Times didn't forget, though. This week they revealed their best TV shows of 2020 list, and Eizouken was featured not once but twice. The list features 3 sections by 3 different authors: Best Shows of 2020, Best International Shows of 2020, and Best Shows that Ended in 2020. Eizouken features in both the Best Shows list and the Best International list. In the first, the section's author, James Pniewicz, I'm probably going to mispronounce that, describes the show as, quote, one of the best renderings of the creative process I've seen on TV, with special meta-attention to the exhausting labor of animation and an affecting team of discovering identity through art, end quote. In the international section, Mike Hale calls it, quote, a charming, fantastical, and relentlessly practical story about freeing and harnessing the energy of young imaginations, end quote. The series follows a group of high school girls as they attempt to produce an animated short. Masaki Yuasa's anime version is based on Sumito Owara's 2016 manga of the same name, and you will never get the opening credit sequence out of your head. This is an anime that I certainly watched and loved as it was coming out. It's a really fun thing. And New York Times, dang.
Yeah, I when I saw that article, I think I link you,
Mm-hmm.
Brett, on that article when I was just like, holy yes,
Yeah.
I love this show.
Mm-hmm.
I love the opening
guess I'm-
song sequence, the little dance sequence of them. Oh my goodness, that's why I bought the T-shirt. I'm waiting for the Nendoroid of all the girls. I'm like, oh yeah, come on now.
I guess I'm gonna have to watch this show. Then I've been a fan of the first season of Animation Runner Kurami.
Oh yeah,
and so I've always liked those kinds of things. So I'm gonna have to watch this.
yeah.
Because
No,
the
right.
New York Times said so.
Exactly. You know, the New York Times says so. You know, we know their authors never fake stories, so we're good there.
Nope. And they're one step up or maybe parallel with the Oprah Book Club, so we know it's all solid legit.
Exactly.
When Oprah says "Watch, keep your hands off the eyes again," then you know it has gone galactically cool.
Totally, yes. You have to wait for that at some point.
Yeah.
Speaking of books,
Keep holding your breath.
we all knew anticipation was high for the release of The Intuition of Haruhi Suzumiya, the first new novel in the series in more than 9 years. It seems the printing staff weren't quite prepared for just how high, however. On the 27th, just 2 days after the novel's release, the official Twitter announced that an emergency reprint of the new novel had been decided due to much higher than expected sales. The staff also thanked readers for their passionate reception. The Twitter account also noticed the reprint version will not have the reversible cover the original version does. So readers who really want the reversible cover should try to purchase that as soon as possible. Yen Press released the English version of the novel digitally on release date, but the print version isn't set to release until June of 2021. Hopefully, they'll take some advice from this incident and print extra copies. Now, to be clear, you know, it's not like they printed 10 copies of this and oh my gosh, it was successful. Right. I'm sure they had a sizable print run planned for this, but that's pretty exciting.
Well, I mean, how long have we all loved Haruhi? How much was the dance done? You know, I mean, I would kind of imagine, that they probably were like, yeah, let's do 10 million copies. Mm-hmm. And if they did, and holy crap, good on them, because to have to run an emergency print up for more?
2 days?
Oh, yeah, that's going to be cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure it's better written than the 50 Shades of Grey books were.
I hope so.
Pretty quickly, but they were really, really, really bad. Yeah, I read them.
Well, I'm going to hope that was a different audience.
Yes. I really hope that's not Haruhi's intuition. I'm just going to say. I just really hope.
Like I'd be dashed.
Yeah, I'd be a little creeped out. There's 50-year-old dude with handcuffs doing the Haruhi dance. No. Don't mix those.
Granted, there's no, I'm not going to go there. Moving right along.
But
go ahead.
Yeah, it just surprised. No, I was just going to say, it just surprised me that it had to do a reprint so quickly. I was kind of like, really? They didn't think that, but I don't know. Maybe to me, speaking of someone who has not even seen the anime yet, still have to watch it. Even I know that this was a thing in all caps, and this is just it's like I know what the dance is because I did Otakon ever that I've gone to. And so to hear that the light novel, not the manga, the light novel sold out like that. I was just like,
yep.
On the one hand, they're probably mad at the guy who did the print order. On the other hand, they're probably like going, yes, at the same time. So,
yep, very, very cool.
Again, if I could invest.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Kodansha's shoujo manga magazine Nakayoshi announced a new tennis manga this week. But rather than the cute high school girl character you might expect, the new manga features real tennis champion Naomi Osaka. The manga will be drawn by Futago Kamikita, an artist group best known for the Pretty Cure manga adaptations. And Naomi's sister, Mari Osaka, will be overseeing the manga herself. Naomi Osaka expressed her excitement over the announcement on Twitter, saying, quote, Growing up reading manga and watching anime was something that bonded me and my sister immensely, so this is really exciting for both of us, end quote. A tweet of hers also went viral last year when she posted a picture of what else? Prince of Tennis protagonist Ryoma, describing him as her husband. Osaka's father is Haitian American and her mother is Japanese. She was born in Japan but moved to America at 3 years old. She is the current reigning champion of the U.S. Open, 3-time Grand Slam singles champion, and the number 3 female tennis player as ranked by the Women's Tennis Association. This could be a fun trend to take off next. What other athletes or famous people would make good manga protagonists, I wonder. What do you guys think? Who would you like to see a manga?
I think that's pretty.
Hulk Hogan. No.
I was gonna say Ray
They
Lewis
did
of
that.
the Ravens, but you know.
Did you remember Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling? The Saturday morning cartoon series?
Yes, I do.
Hey, that
Yeah,
unfortunate
and
voice.
let's not do that again. Do you remember Mr. T and his friends?
Oh,
that would
yeah!
go around and-
Uh-huh.
No. let's not do that. I mean, you could do a Rocky thing and basically take Megalobox, then insert Rocky into it.
True.
There's some easy stuff, but Greg Louganis in the free
Oh, there we
Watomi
go.
Swim Club.
Absolutely.
You can do that.
Yeah.
What is it? Greg LeMond. You could put him in Yawamushi Pedal, whatever it is, that biking show. I mean,
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, a lot of the big ones that I think of are sufficiently disgraced that they wouldn't really make great folks. Actually, I think you could do an interesting thing with like Michael Jordan, because he's not an active athlete, so you can kind of go back and become a little more historical, if you will. Kind of interesting.
That would be.
Mike Tyson for the Mike Tyson mysteries that they do
we
on
go.
Adult Swim. Just make it into an anime. It'll be fine.
Oh my gosh. No, and all sorts of.
Oh, come on. Good fun. The Mike Tyson mysteries are a scream. They're quite funny.
They are.
What if you could do LeBron James?
Ah, yeah, I can see that.
They had him as a side character in a Teen Titans Go, where they were doing a spoof on Scooby-Doo. And, you know what I mean? It's like, so LeBron James is like,
Sure.
stayed fairly out of controversy. So I
Yeah.
think that would also work.
Definitely.
So
That's pretty cool. Yeah, it's one of the nice things. Is I think
For some reason.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and for some reason, I had Lynn Bias in my head. I don't know why. But sure, you would have been a perfect. For those of you who don't know Lynn Bias, look it up.
I have no idea.
Mike Nicholson?
But yeah, one of the nice things about sports is that, easy drama, right? You can kind of tell a dramatic story about pretty much any sports career. So, kind of makes sense. Also interesting doing a tennis manga that looks like Pretty Cure. Like, I really like the style. It's just not what you normally see for sports.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
And just think what the musical will look like.
Exactly.
Tap dancing. Tap dancing as far as the eye can see.
I am number 3 female tennis ranked by the Women's Tennis Association. I am number 3 female, whatever. Also,
Could you
this
just say
week,
that she's the princess of tennis?
and possibly.
I am the princess of tennis.
Also this week, Bushiroad and Broccoli revealed a partnership, and their first project will be a collaboration between Bushiroad's Lost Decade smartphone game and Broccoli's Digi-Carrot. The Digi-Carrot characters will appear for a limited time in Lost Decade, which just came out in September. The new collab comes as part of an overall plan to kind of reboot the Digi-Carrot franchise, so fans will have to keep their eyes peeled in the future for more updates. The Digi-Carrot characters are mascots Broccoli and the Gamers retail chain. You still see her on the side of the building, green-haired girl with a maid outfit, bells. The franchise began in '98 and has featured anime, manga, video games, and voice actor events, following alien hybrid cat girl Digi-Carrot, and was also described by Bushiroad as a trailblazer in moe culture, which is certainly accurate. Cyber Animation's CA Animation label and DMM Games have announced a new collaborative mixed media project called Pura Ore Pride of Orange. This is a hockey-themed project, which will include a game and an anime, described as the first girls' ice hockey anime ever. Pretty cool. Anime studio C2C will also be involved in the anime side of the project. The staff and cast will hold a live stream formally unveiling the project on YouTube and Periscope, and will announce casters one by one each day until then, which is the standard process these days to keep the hype chain going. Train, not chain, whatever. Kanekawa announced this week that a TV anime is in the work in its Selection Project multimedia project, set to debut sometime in 2021. The theme of the project is Idol Cross Audition Cross Reality Show. That's new. Centering around an annual Selection Project reality show, which is an audience-voted contest for girls who want to become idols. Daisuke Hiramaki of Naruto Shippuden and New Game will direct the anime at Doga Kobo, and Yohei Kisara of Love Live is producing the music. Now, a website opened this week for a new TV anime adaptation of Light to Chihi's light novel, What if the ultimate in fully immersive VR RPGs was a crappier game than reality itself, set to premiere in April. The story follows high school student Hiro, who gets tricked into playing a new full-dive VR game that's marketed as being more real than reality. Once he gets into the game, he finds it deserted, as previous players quickly found the game is too realistic. Activities in the game are based on the player's real physical fitness, and wounds cause pain and take days to heal. But despite the only reward being a vague sense of accomplishment, Hiro vows to beat the game. Now, in case you're wondering how well will this be handled, Toshihi's previous light novel was The Hero is Overpowered but Overly Cautious, which inspired its own anime adaptation last year, which I know a lot of people really enjoyed. So clearly somebody who knows how to have fun with this concept, yeah. Now, Shinei Animation, the studio behind Crayon Shin-chan and Doraemon, has announced a new children's show this week with a different format than usual. The new Pui Pui Molcar series will be made in stop motion, featuring character puppets of felted wool. The story centers on guinea pigs who have become cars. The Molcar title comes from morimoto, the Japanese word for guinea pig, and of course, car. The concept might sound strange, but the puppets do look absolutely adorable, even if guinea pigs look a little funny with wheels instead of legs. Anyway, the show will premiere on TV Tokyo on January 5th. Finally, in news that seems inevitable, Demon Slayer Mugen Train has officially capsized Titanic to become the second highest earning film of all time in Japan. Only Spirited Away now stands between Mugen Train and the top spot. The film has earned a 27.5 billion yen in its 45-day run so far. That's about $265 million US. Now, Spirited Away's record is 30.8 billion yen. So it won't seem too surprising in a week or two if we're announcing that Demon Slayer is taking its top spot as well. It is already the highest grossing animated film worldwide this year and the number 5 film overall. Cannot stop the Mugen Train.
Wow.
Lord.
Yep.
Again, it's another, one of those you look back, like you watch a currently running anime with, that's been really a lot of money put into it, and the direction of it, the music for it, the just absolute visual joy of it, and think back 20 years. Hallelujah, we live in this time right now where anime is not just this obscure thing that was traded between small groups of people who could somehow in the greater ether of no internet find each other. That now you've got Mugen Train is just this anime force of nature. It's just hauling forward. Like, yes, thank you.
20 years ago.
I was trying to...
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I was trying to explain this to someone, and they're just like, so it's Pixar. I'm like, no. Let me try this again. So it's Disney. No, let me try this again.
I can't.
And you just keep going. You're right. It's was it the Batman Robin?
Exactly, the Batman Robin meme. No.
And just trying to explain, anime, and then finally going, the big eyes. Okay, wait, really? Yeah, really. Yeah, that's a thing. But just to see that. I'm just like, because obviously I've said this before, but once it comes over here to America, it's going to get more than a limited release. I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll actually get a decent.
At this rate,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean. Uh-oh.
You get Bebop, where they put it out there and then they cut it after like 2 weeks. You know, so we'll see what happens. But you know, that's one of those movies where it's just like I know nothing about the anime or whatever, but I just feel like I'm obligated to see this thing. So when it comes out here, shell out my money.
Yeah, and I gotta say, Patrick, I don't think anime is very niche these days. You know, I work with folks coming out of college, and they all watch anime. You know, not necessarily actively, but they've all seen Naruto. They've all watched anime in the past. Yeah. They're all familiar with it. They're all, it's normal these days.
Yeah, and even if they're not actively watching or actively past watching, like almost 90% of people who are even 50 or younger know of anime. It's not something that's just like, oh, I understand American cartoons, but I don't know what that is. No, even just not having seen it, they know what it is.
Yeah.
So it's like that depth of knowledge has really gotten far.
20 years ago, I would tell people, hey, I watch anime, and they would say, what is that? And I would say Japanese animation, and they would say, what is that? Literally. They did not know what those words meant.
Yep.
So it's changed a lot. It definitely has changed a lot. 20 years ago, Pokemon had just came out. Gosh. You get an idea of how long things have... How long ago that was.
We've talked about this so many times before. It's like gateway drug.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's
totally.
like that is in a lot of ways how people who are getting into the second half of life, they, not themselves, but their kids or their nieces, nephews, grandkids had watched that. Right. So they have knowledge of these things and have, for a majority of people who've had to sit through babysitting a child, they may have been forced into watching several episodes of it. So, the experience is there.
Definitely. That's the thing, is that things have really, things have changed. And again, it's not that everybody watches anime all the time. It's still a fandom. Yeah. But things have definitely, boy, have they changed.
The breadth of access is just mind-boggling.
It really is.
If this was 1978, you would be going, so were you able to catch it on Channel 20 at 3:30 p.m.? No.
Oh, yeah.
Well, then you missed it.
Yep.
Let me fill you in, because you're not going to know what's going to happen the next time. So.
Yeah. Hey, did you talk to that kid, the AV club? Were they able to get the dual decks of the VHS put together so that you could get a copy off of that so we could see it? Yeah. None of that anymore.
Yeah. Thank God.
Back when you would watch anime,
so much.
Yep.
That's the only way you get it, if you had to.
Yep.
But yeah, it's fascinating. So I want to take a moment here to talk about something that was brought up by somebody in an earlier chat. I know it's kind of hard to quantify, but I thought it'd be interesting to talk about anime that involves, for lack of a term, mental weirdness. People who are unreliable narrators, characters who may be going through things and how that's affecting their view of events. Perfect Blue, I think, is the poster child for this.
I was just thinking.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, characters.
Paprika. There's, anything by
Lane.
Satoshi Kon.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to throw Lane in there. Sorry, Brent.
No, I think that's absolutely valid.
Yeah.
There's an argument that Lane is. Do I say this? Yeah. There's an argument that Lane is dying throughout the entire anime series. Okay, so, all right, we're gonna go there. I was lucky enough to attend a panel at Otakon where some of the staff of Lane were there, and somebody stood up and said, "So, in the first episode, Lane looks down at her fingers, and smoke comes out of her fingers." And that is apparently a common thing that people self-report when they're dying and they have a dream and they get brought back. That is a common thing that they say they saw in their dream when they were kind of going through that death dream. And so they said, is Lane dying throughout the entire anime series, and that's why it's so... And this is all just kind of her mind trying to pull everything together. And the creators said, "Ooh, if you believe that as an interpretation, go for it."
Wow.
That is a valid interpretation of the entire show. But there are other, interpretations. That's not the interpretation.
Right.
But yeah. So there's a lot of... This is an interesting thing that pops up fairly often in anime. Characters having mental issues. Akira, right?
Yep.
Tetsuo definitely is not all right in the head. The kids are not all right.
Well, for more recently, would you consider Goblin Slayer?
I've only seen
his
episode
obsession
1,
with...
So.
Well, just from what you've seen in episode 1, where he's blindly, obsessively after goblins because of a horrible childhood traumatic experience that mentally nothing else matters but goblins. It's not, any of the end of the world. It's not any kind of other monster. It's goblins. Just goblins. I have no mental capacity to deal with anything but goblins and killing them. So it's it's kind of a mental weirdness, and I think everybody that interacts with him is also kind of like, hey, there's, other things going on. He's like, does it involve goblins? And they're like, okay. Okay, we got your little off map here. We're doing other things.
Yeah, I think Paranoid Agent absolutely counts, Jay. That's again classic one. Welcome to the NHK, I think, is also very much about that, pretty explicitly. That is the central theme of that show. Whereas Paprika, it's more I forget her name, but the main character herself is pretty well put together. She's just dealing with other people who have problems in their lives.
Who are nuts.
Yeah, exactly. And to be pointed out, obviously there are, insane villains in shonen series. We put that to the side. But yeah, I think that is kind of interesting. Berserk.
Shinji.
Yeah. Evangelion. There we go. Shinji. Uh-huh.
There's a little tad of mental weirdness. Let's all clap for him.
Asuka. Yeah. Definitely. Mr. Ikari. Also, I think Gendo has one or two issues to work through himself.
Just a handful.
He'll be fine.
Could you say things like Orika 7 or, Amuro Red? You know what I mean? Is there mental weirdness in that, or is that just sort of reactions to things around you and you're just coping with it? You're not just weird mentally by yourself.
Right. I don't know. Gundam in general definitely does deal with how war kind of drives you mad, or just affects you in strong ways. So I think you can certainly go there. As I said before, I think Amuro is probably on the spectrum. So you can kind of filter that in as well. Not to say, weirdness, but trying to portray a different mental perspective. So yeah, there's certainly that. But I don't know. That's an interesting point. One of the fascinating things also about Gundam is the characters often present as logical and reasonable, but then their actions are often extreme. Char Aznable being a great example of somebody who is, fine doing his thing, and then all of a sudden, kills a guy. And there's a reason for that, but, a very strong thing.
Now, Fixus brought up Aku no Hana. That's Flowers of Evil, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that's what that is. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's some mental weirdness going there.
Yeah, there is. Oh, there's a whole lot going on there.
Oh.
Don't want to touch that with a 10-foot clown pole. Thank you.
Yeah. I think it's fascinating too because you get a fair amount of. This shows up, I would say, more in anime than I'm used to seeing it in other media, right? You don't see a lot of westerns with this kind of thing in it. You don't see a lot of rom-coms with this kind of thing in it. Musicals. I mean, Cats is kind of weird, but anyway.
Just got Higurashi the musical.
Yeah.
I want to see that now. But yeah, it's weird.
Stab.
Yeah, exactly.
Stab.
But yeah, no, it's interesting. Boogie Pop Phantom obviously comes to mind as well.
Yeah.
One of the classics. And why do you think anime does do it so often? Like what is it about anime that makes it fertile ground for this, do you think?
Well, I mean, obviously it's an interesting driving plot point, but you can really get a story going if you've got somebody who's got like a crazy twitch going on, that you can tell your broader story, and then in that you can layer in some Future Diary the musical. Holy cow! Mirai Nikki the musical. Wow.
Yep.
That's wow. $1 million idea or a psycho work for all of us. But I think if you're going to layer in stories that, and sort of not have a full-on arc by itself, but just sort of layer in the stories, it's really easy to work with mental weirdness, because then you can say, the hero goes and does this. And then you can say, but the hero's motivated because of this. They, somebody strangled their pet puppy when they were like 5. That would be, a mental weirdness that's interesting to explore as a subtext to the general storyline. So I think it provides depth.
Code Geass, definitely is one of those. Yep, absolutely.
Going to destroy Britannia.
I just think the medium, I think just the medium itself, like just the animation, whether it's the cell or CGI or whatever, it provides you with a visual of bringing that madness or that very specific OCD thing in closer, and it can and you can hide it like sotto voce in opera and on theater, where it's a loud whisper to tell the crowd this is what's going on. Actors on stage don't know, but that's obvious. Now in animation, it's a look. It's a like how many times have we seen a character literally go insane in the middle of a room full of people and nobody notices, but you see the the crazy look that goes on their face and then just disappears. You can get away with that. Now I'm thinking of I'm watching currently the television series Fargo.
Yep.
And there's a lot of mental weirdness in there. There's a lot of mental weirdness going on. And it's harder to pull out because there's multiple things you have to do to bring it out. You cannot just rely on the visual. You cannot rely on the audio. You cannot rely on concert, and that's a little bit harder to do, especially when you're dealing with a purposely make that medium do what you want it. You have to go through a number of whatevers to get it right. And even then, someone else in the background might go walk in with the cell phone.
Yeah, I think we're losing Steve here a little bit. But yeah, and I'm totally with you there. And I think it also ties into the fact that animation has an abstraction to it. Well, like Scott McCloud talks about, where, because the characters aren't real, you can project yourself more onto them.
Right.
And you can do more with it. You can be more over the top. You can be more constrained, however you want to be, where with live action or whatever, like you that's their face. Like you can't just suddenly make their face do something else outside of CGI and such.
Well, all the stuff that we talk about, like, tropey kind of things and visual cues that have developed that give you extra personality elements to a person, so that if you're looking at some live actor and they're having this internal conflict, you really have to understand the entirety of the context and then watch their body language, watch their facial features, and then sort of intuit from that what mentally is going on if you don't have the sort of omnipresent narrator telling you what's going on. Versus anime, you can project that mental weirdness, and I'm thinking of, it's not Lane, it was some other, but somebody learned some shocking news, and all of a sudden you have a camera angle that literally is like cutting slightly through their forehead to their nose, and their facial effect, their pupils are huge, their eyes are huge, and it's like almost like a flat effect on their face. And you can see the tension in the way it's drawn, and you can feel the sort of snap moment.
Yeah.
Just the angle of the camera is impossible to do live action, and the facial construct to telegraph what's going on is with all of those shortcut pieces, so that you instantly know, oh crap, this person has just gone, and now we get to see what's going to happen.
I think of Evangelion when the arm breaks, and we see that sort of just black and white image of Shinji and his eyes, and it's very abstract, but he's out of it, he's gone. And
that's in anime. I mean, it's much easier to coordinate that mental weirdness and that moment of what's going on internally than it is trying to do that with a live action.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And Jay, I think Death Note is absolutely a candidate here. Those characters are messed up, definitely.
Yeah.
I keep going back to Gundam because I think it is so interesting how, that is a franchise where where you have kind of big characters,
right,
and sometimes they are driven to extreme behaviors, but it's not so much. Well, I guess it's because of trauma and things like that. I'm thinking like Gundam Wing, which is over the top. But
how about Ray Zero? Zero? You know what I mean? If you think about Subaru, I think that's where I'm thinking that camera angle, where there's so many things going on. He's done so much to try and correct the path that he's going on, and each successive failure after having tried to plan to not fail leads to that kind of like snap moment where he's got to dial back in from just being like, this is a level of insanity I can't do.
Gotcha.
So, you know what I mean? It's like that kind of thing. Like there's altered mental stress. You keep dying, and then you keep having to do it again. And it's just like, oh, yeah, I'd go pretty bonkers after a while on that, too.
Yeah. I mean, you even have it in Trigun. I think you see it in... as light and fun as that show can be, you definitely see it in Vash here and there. You definitely see it in Knives. You see it in a lot of those characters. You see it in Wolfwood, where all of this weight that he carries on his shoulders. And I think mecha anime is kind of a staple of mecha anime, is the character who's kind of mentally off, who just isn't seeing the world in the proper way. Then even further filtered through the main character, who is often just kind of thrown into war despite being 12 or whatever, as mecha anime tends to do to people. Which I would argue probably goes back to like Zambot 3. I would say Zambot 3 is one of the first ones to really dive into that, to make its child protagonists go through
kid
hell.
Warriors. Yeah.
Like, jeez. Not gonna forget that ending very much. It's fascinating because you go back, even Astro Boy. I think you look at Dr. Tenma. Dr. Tenma is a very psychologically messed up character. His son. I mean, okay, it's over half a century old. I think I can talk about it. His son dies in a tragic accident, and so he decides to create a robot version of his son to replace him. That's not creepy.
Yeah, it's not weird at all.
No, that's not strange. And so he, does that, and then because Astro is not an exact replica of his son, he rejects him and sells him to the circus, and then goes off and goes in his own direction, has his own storyline. I think it's great. Which, by the way,
therapy role.
No kidding. If you ever found that odd, the 2003 Astro Boy anime series really dives into Tenma's psychology and really makes that plotline kind of the bookend, if you will, of the anime series, and does a great job, providing that as kind of the core, I guess, sort of emotional journey plotline of an anime series. I love that ending. That is probably my favorite ending of any Tezuka Astro thing. Like, they did an amazing job there.
Okay.
But no spoilers. But yeah, it's a plot line, to be clear. It's a plot line that Tezuka never resolved. It was always this background thing that's kind of going on in Astro Boy. So the fact that the 2003 anime series actually makes it a beginning, middle, and end kind of a plot line was a satisfying thing for fans. Anyway. I have not seen Doreku, I don't think. Actually, Dororo comes to mind as well. That is kind of one of the big things in Dororo, which is the anime series about the young man who all of his
part
limbs,
soul.
soul demons and so forth, and he's trying to get them back.
Yep.
And trying to kind of forgive. That's a rough one.
I forgive you, Daddy, for selling all my parts off to get power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well.
And also you get the horror manga or the horror stories, MBD Psycho, where the villain is a psycho.
The villain is a well-adjusted and perfectly normal social participant.
Exactly. Yes. Actually, having laser eyes, that's a good point. You have the Rei XP, the weirdly emotionless character.
Yeah.
In anime, that's certainly true. And Rei's always kind of the weird one because there are clear reasons for that. Not really having so much to do with trauma per se. But then you have other characters we clearly had weird things. Higurashi being the classic example of characters who are behaving differently than they should. But yeah, that is certainly a trope. The weirdly emotionless characters who just kind of float through life.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's certainly, these are all things you see a lot in anime, and I find it fascinating that they're there.
Yeah. Well, it makes for good story.
Yeah.
We all like good story.
For you guys, what were some of the those anime with mentally oddball characters that kind of leapt out at you early in your anime career when you were let's get into this this weird Japanese cartoon, what the hell, that those shows you're like, Japan's screwed up,
Duh.
Yeah. Because for me it was definitely Lane. That was the first.
So
I can't think of too many ones that were too freaky weird. I mean, there was just the Robotech Macross stuff.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It was just the wearing on you of war. It wasn't necessarily anybody except for Galeron. The one guy from Robotech who was the sub commander below Britai.
Okay.
Who decided to ram the SDF-1 in the final episode because he's screw this, I don't want to live in peace with these people, I just want to live in the glory of war, so I'm gonna ram my ship at full speed and blow everybody up. That's when I realized that you had the wacky insane evil person, but it wasn't it was kind of okay, I could grasp why you were doing it. It wasn't completely out of character,
So most of my anime watching was kind of along those lines, where just wasn't any. I didn't watch really a whole lot of horror anime up until a certain point, and then I think that the first weird anime would have been Akira. Just because it was different. And just so different than what I was watching, but I didn't really identify any character as being mentally weird. I mean, you knew that the kids who were numbered kids were odd because of that way, and you knew that Kaneda was just a thing bad anyway. And that conceptually it was weird. It probably, gosh, it was a while before I saw something that just kind of made me go, and I can't even process what that was. I mean, the things that come up to me that go, oh man, that's messed up, is like Hellsing or Higurashi or stuff like that. But I've never come across, up until Evangelion, I never came across a character that was, or a clone of whatever. So really, when was the set Yoshikon, that's really what this is weird. Now, in terms of conceptually weird stuff, there's been a lot of stuff over time that I've seen, but not character.
Yeah. Come to that, I think Ghost in the Shell too was one of the first for me, where the characters definitely. I mean, they're not mentally ill in it, really, but Michiko Tsunagi is clearly going through some stuff. She's trying to kind of process who she is and what's going on, and there's definitely some psychology going on there. I was like, oh, this is, this is a little deeper than I'm used to these sorts of stories going.
All right. All I can think about, Phil's dark side of anime and stuff, and it's like I then watched Future Diary, and I think that's probably like the first, because I typically bounce off of like horror kind of weird stuff, because I like rom-com slice of life, like Non-Buri, I'd watch that all day. Eurocamp all day, never even a second guess. And watch Future Diary, I'm like, oh boy. Then I watch some Boogie Bop Pants and Phantom, I'm like, oh my. Then a little bit of Paranoia Agent, I'm like, what am I doing? Ergo Proxy, I'm like, why am I doing this to myself?
Jay, yes.
No,
that anime. Sorry, go ahead. Doreku.
No, I was just gonna say that one, definitely definitely the weirdest anime that I guess now that I'm thinking about it, I'm hesitant to even mention it. It was.
What?
My Little Pony.
Sorry, you died there for a second. Oh yeah, I think we're losing Steve again. Yep. That's frustrating.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. Sorry, Steve. It just keeps locking you out for like 5 seconds. Right. Can't hide it forever. Actually, Captain Laser Eyes, I believe. I read a thing that apparently like Camille is explicitly stated to be on the autism spectrum at some point in Zeta Gundam, which I missed. But
really?
Apparently that is the thing.
Wow.
Which surprises me for 1985, whenever it came out.
Yeah.
But apparently he is diagnosed with that.
Not particularly tolerant times in the mid '80s,
right.
So it's
which
rather surprising.
And I mean, that is one of the themes of that series, is that he is not tolerated. Yeah, no, he does not have a good time. He gets the snot kicked out of him at least once because of his like physically, like face to face, because of the way he behaves.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's creators kind of like, ooh, I'm not comfortable with this. Like that's ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, it's kind of intentional. But yeah, definitely something that comes up a lot in it. Excuse me, in anime, and I think it's kind of fascinating that we see it a lot.
And that's why it's fascinating. It keeps us engaged in what's going on.
Exactly. Cool. I totally forgot about anime history. 1 second while I pull that up. If there's anything happening in anime history, as I mentioned before, end of year is always usually pretty light. I say always usually. Is mostly light in terms of events. See if I have anything on the list. Let's find out. This is the 5th of December. Oh, look at that. Yeah, we should definitely mention that. One moment. Now the question is, do I have an image for this already? I hope so. I do not. That's a shame.
The day that Studio Trigger was founded. Oh.
Not quite. It's definitely the beginning of something.
The beginning of the end.
It's the end of the world, and we know it.
And we know it.
Let's see here. I'm surprised I don't have an image. I have an image for it somewhere, but I'm not going to go ahead and do that right now. We're just going to go ahead and talk about it.
This is the end, my only friend. The end.
That was in 1966. All right. Let me go ahead and switch over to that real quick. We'll do This Week in Anime History. Hello, everyone. Welcome to This Week in Anime History, where we talk about things that happened this week in anime history. And this week saw the premiere of Sally the Witch in 1966. This was the first shoujo anime, also technically the first magical girl anime, although in this case she is a girl with magical powers who moves to Earth and then has general little girl adventures as Sally the Witch by using her magical powers, which she uses by doing this. Which some folks here might recognize. And
it's bewitching.
Sally the Witch is very notable exactly for being an anime series in which Sally is indeed the hero of the show. She comes in, she has her adventures, she deals with things. Her little brother comes along too, who is like 5 or 6 or something. But definitely female-led hero, heroine, female-led show, anime series, all the way back in 1966. So only a few years after Astro Boy came out, we got that. Now, technically, it is not the first magical girl work. There was a manga called The Secret of Ako-chan, which started before Sally the Witch manga started. So it predates Sally the Witch, but the anime for Himitsu no Aku-chan didn't come out until after Sally the Witch came out. So Sally the Witch got the title of first anime because it got out first in anime, but there was a magical girl work before Sally the Witch. But still, definitely a landmark anime worth checking out. It is in glorious black and white. If you do see it, I think later episodes were in color, but that first episode is in black and white. It is, out there on YouTube and places like that if you want to check it out. But definitely a bit of anime history. So that's cool. I've seen episode 1.
Sally the Witch. Jeez.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, had you discussed before, was Sally and the magical girl thing just specifically tapping the other part of the market share? So you already had boy things, and now you're looking for something that was specifically girl-related so you could have 100% of the population engaged in your program and marketing?
Oh, yeah, I think it goes back to the magazines. I think, those magazines existed, and they were trying to mine all the manga for all the things. And they were like,
right.
Okay, we've done this shonen, this shonen, this shonen, this shonen. What's the other thing we can do? We can do Sally. Certainly, I think there was a desire to appeal to the girls' market. Granted, a lot of girls watched Astro Boy, Gigantor, and so forth. They had a sizable female market. In other words, I don't know that Sally was explicitly like, we need to capture the female market. I think it was more like, we're going to capture the female market. What are we going to choose? Might as well do Sally.
Right.
That's a good question, though. But yeah. And if you get a chance, Sally's pretty charming. It's definitely 1966 animation. Like it's.
Well, the snippets you've shown at your panel, it's it's a thing.
Yep, it's
like wow.
It's basic, but it's effective,
thing, right?
and it's definitely it's a little beyond Astro Boy in the sense that Astro Boy, especially early episodes, could be very, very choppy. And Sally's resolved some of that stuff, but it's still just there's not a huge budget for this show.
No,
sadly.
I mean, there's a lot of repetition in things, and even just the short clip that you showed, it was just like not really. They didn't really hire a separate background making group where they could focus on just how awesome the backgrounds would be, while the primary animators were working on the character animations. No, apparently they were doing it all, and the character animations doing things in front of a background.
Yep.
Like
yeah. Granted, there are fewer, things where they cut to somebody who is just literally just in the void of space, basically. Where, just cutting somebody who's just a black background or just like vaguely gray background. But still, there's a lot where it's just kind of like, oh, okay, they had to get this done in 5 minutes, and they did.
Yeah. Scooby-Doo running down the hallway, bookcase, bookcase, same picture, same bookcase. Like, here we go.
Yep. I particularly liked in the Hanna-Barbera cartoons that were like a Quick Draw McGraw or whatever, where they'd be like in a hut, and they'd do that, and there'd be like a stove, and they'd go by the same stove 5 times. It's like, no. You can't repeat that. I'm sorry. That just doesn't make sense.
It's like a 20 by 20 single room, and you run by the stove 5 times. Are you in circles? I mean, what do you? Somebody could just cut across the middle and get at you. I mean, you don't have to keep running in circles, right?
Exactly. So, yeah, I just have a question.
What did we learn on the show tonight, Brent?
I have not learned anything about Demon Slayer that I did not know previously.
Yes.
I learned factual things, but I'm well aware, I guess. I think we're all well aware at this point of Mugen Train. I learned that smartphone games continue to be a significant part of the market.
Yeah.
And that's a thing we should all probably start getting used to.
Yeah.
Well, with the storyline going to the smart game, it's like that's a significant shift. Yeah. I mean, that's not just adding to, that's like replacing a significant segment of storytelling. Like you're moving it from anime to a smart game. Okay.
Actually, isn't that what we're getting out of the pachinko games?
It is. It's a pachinko. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's all back to pachinko.
So I'm gonna have to somehow Mugen Train.
Yeah. Yeah.
Digital games on my smartphone.
There we go.
Yeah.
I just gotta get the Evo Pachinko machine now in one corner to get all of that, all that stuff.
Oh, Brent's gonna go shopping for Christmas. We're gonna tune in. There'll be a huge pachinko machine behind you. Oh, I found it in Tokyo. It was on sale. It tells a completely unknown Evangelion story. Oh God, here we go.
If I come back from the holidays with something from Japan, I will have a bigger story to tell than an Evo Pachinko machine. If I have somehow managed to get to Japan.
You smuggled yourself in and out of the country without the customs people knowing. I learned that Aizoken, a beloved show I enjoy so much, is getting the richly deserved recognition.
Agreed.
Oh, I'm very, very happy for that. And, of course, Mugen Train. Yeah. There you are. And also really happy about Haruhi. It's been 9 years in the making to get more Haruhi. And then, yeah, thank you. I hope they don't screw it up. Yeah. That's all I ask. Please don't screw it up. Please don't trod upon something I love.
Someone say they already did, so we can just kind of move past that.
Steve, you with us?
Oh no! I think we lost Steve again. Dang it! The internet is hating us tonight, sadly.
Steve learned the internet is a fickle mistress.
Exactly. Yes.
Sometimes she giveth, sometimes she taketh away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is unfortunately true. All right, I think that'll do it for us for tonight. Thank you all so much for being here. Appreciate you being here, and this has been a great time. We will not be back next week. We're taking a bit of a break, bit of a holiday break, but we'll be back the following week to talk about The Grave of the Fireflies, Isao Takahata's classic 1988 film. So make sure you check that one out. Bring a bucket for your tears.
Tissues, lots of tissues.
Yep. So you can find that around, yeah, that is a thing we're gonna be discussing. We have quite a bit of things to say. Yeah.
And Brent, was there any particular thing that you loved that you wanted to talk about?
No. I don't care about anything today. No.
I love your honesty.
I'm all good tonight.
All right.
I think. So yeah, thank you all so much. Have a great one,
Johnny. Catch you on the flip side, y'all. There goes the cat.